Unexpected guardian. The desert night shattered with a streak of purple light. Dr. Thomas Chen slammed on his brakes, his old pickup truck skidding to a halt on the empty New Mexico highway. The burning trail carved across the sky wasn't like any meteor he'd seen in his 15 years at the Socorro Observatory. It moved too deliberately, its descent too controlled. The object crashed beyond the next ridge, sending up a plume of dust visible even in the moonlight. Thomas's hand hovered over his phone, ready to call it in, but something made him hesitate. Working for NASA's Near-Earth Object Program meant following strict protocols for meteorite impacts. Yet his instincts, honed by years of studying the skies, told him this was different. He turned off the highway, his truck bouncing over the rough terrain. The impact site glowed with an eerie purple light that pulsed like a heartbeat. As he crested the ridge, his headlights illuminated something that stopped his breath. Not a meteorite, but a crystalline pod about the size of a small car, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the darkness. "My God," Thomas whispered, killing the engine. The pod's surface was undamaged despite the impact, suggesting technology far beyond human capability. He approached cautiously, his scientific mind racing to catalogue every detail. The air hummed with static electricity, making his hair stand on end. A seam appeared in the pod's surface, spreading like ripples in water. Thomas stumbled backward as the opening widened, revealing a small figure curled inside. His first thought was of a child, but as the figure uncurled, he saw the silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, delicate features that were almost but not quite human, and large iridescent eyes that opened to meet his gaze. It was a girl, or at least appeared female by human standards, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. She wore what looked like a suit made of the same crystalline material as the pod. Her eyes widened in fear as she saw Thomas, and she tried to scramble backward, but something was wrong. Her movements were weak, uncoordinated. Thomas raised his hands, trying to appear non-threatening. "It's okay," he said softly, knowing she probably couldn't understand, but hoping his tone would convey peace. "I won't hurt you." The girl's eyes darted around frantically before returning to his face. She made a sound like wind chimes, her silver skin taking on a bluish tinge. Thomas recognized signs of distress when he saw them, regardless of species. "You're hurt," he said, taking a careful step forward. The girl didn't retreat this time, instead reaching out with a trembling hand. When their fingers touched, Thomas felt a jolt of static electricity, and suddenly his mind filled with images. A massive ship breaking apart, emergency pods launching, a desperate mission to find sanctuary. The connection broke as the girl slumped forward. Thomas caught her, surprised by how light she felt, like holding a bird. Her skin was cool to the touch, and he could feel a rapid flutter where he assumed her heart would be. The pod's purple light began to fade, and with it, the girl's silvery skin grew dimmer. Thomas knew he had perhaps minutes to make a decision that would change not only his life, but potentially the course of human history. Protocol demanded he report this immediately. The girl would be taken into custody, studied, treated as a specimen rather than a child in need of help. He looked down at her unconscious form, thinking of his own daughter Sarah, lost to cancer 5 years ago. The same protective instinct that had driven him through sleepless nights in hospital rooms surged through him now. "I'm probably going to regret this," he muttered, carefully wrapping the girl in his jacket. He carried her to his truck, buckling her into the passenger seat. By the time he returned to the pod, its surface had become dull and lifeless. Within minutes, it crumbled into a fine, crystalline dust that the desert wind began to scatter. Thomas drove home with his extraterrestrial passenger, his mind racing to formulate a plan. His isolated house on the outskirts of Socorro would provide temporary shelter, but keeping her hidden would be another matter entirely. He had medical training from his time in the Air Force, but treating an alien child was far beyond his expertise. As he pulled into his garage, the girl stirred, those otherworldly eyes opening to fix on him once more. This time, when their gazes met, He felt not fear, but a profound sense of trust. She reached out again, touching his hand, and a single word formed in his mind. "Luna, is that your name?" Thomas asked. The girl nodded slowly, the gesture surprisingly human. "I'm Thomas," he said, pointing to himself, "and I promise I'll keep you safe." Luna's silver skin brightened slightly, and though her features were alien, Thomas could have sworn she smiled. As he helped her from the truck, a shooting star streaked overhead, another pod, perhaps, or debris from whatever disaster had brought Luna to Earth. Thomas sent up a silent prayer that he was making the right choice, knowing that from this moment forward, both their lives would never be the same. From his laboratory window at the observatory the next morning, Thomas watched the military vehicles converge on the crash site. He had called in sick for the first time in 5 years, buying precious time to figure out their next move. In his guest room, Luna slept peacefully, her silver skin now having taken on a peculiar ability to mimic the color and texture of her surroundings, a chameleon-like defense mechanism that might prove invaluable in keeping her hidden. The decision he had made in the desert now seemed both reckless and inevitable. Thomas Chen, the methodical scientist who had spent his career searching the stars for signs of life, had become the guardian of proof that humanity was not alone. But looking at Luna, he saw not an alien specimen to be studied, but a child who needed protection, and perhaps, though he didn't know it yet, someone who would one day protect them all. Adapting to a new world. 3 months after the crash, Thomas sat at his kitchen table, reviewing Luna's latest test results on his tablet. The makeshift lab he created in his basement was crude compared to NASA's facilities, but it had revealed fascinating insights about his young ward. Luna's cellular structure could absorb and process electromagnetic energy directly, explaining her ability to survive the crash. More remarkably, her chameleon-like camouflage wasn't just visual. She could alter her thermal signature and even deflect basic scanning equipment. "Luna," Thomas called out, "time for breakfast." He discovered she could consume human food, though her body processed it differently, extracting energy rather than nutrients in the conventional sense. Luna appeared in the doorway, her skin matching the warm beige of the walls so perfectly that only her outline was visible. She'd grown stronger since her arrival, and her English had progressed from telepathic images to broken sentences. More importantly, she'd begun to trust Thomas completely, treating him like the father she'd lost. "Thomas," she said, her voice carrying that musical quality that made his name sound like a chord rather than a word. "More dreams last night." She sat at the table, her skin shifting to its natural silver hue as she reached for the bowl of fruit he prepared. Thomas tensed. Luna's dreams had proven prophetic before. What kind of dreams? "Earthsick," she said, struggling to find the right words. "Course spinning wrong." She pressed her hands against her temples, frustrated by the limitations of English. Instead, she reached across the table to touch Thomas's hand. The image that flooded his mind was terrifying. Earth's magnetic field twisting, weakening, letting in deadly solar radiation. He saw cities going dark, satellites falling from the sky, compasses spinning uselessly as the planet's protective shield failed. "When?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Luna shook her head. "Not sure. Soon. Feel it getting worse." Thomas was about to press for more details when his security system chimed. Someone was coming up the driveway. Luna's skin instantly matched the kitchen walls, and she moved silently to her designated hiding spot behind the refrigerator, a drill they'd practiced dozens of times. Through the security camera, Thomas saw a familiar face. Dr. Sarah Martinez, his colleague from the observatory, stepped out of her car. His heart rate spiked. Sarah was brilliant and normally trustworthy, but these weren't normal circumstances. "Stay hidden," he whispered unnecessarily to Luna before going to answer the door. Sarah didn't wait for pleasantries. "Thomas, we need to talk," she said, brushing past him into the house. "The magnetometer readings from last night, they're like nothing we've ever seen. The Earth's magnetic field is showing patterns that should be impossible." Thomas felt Luna's presence in his mind, radiating concern. "What kind of patterns?" he asked, leading Sarah away from the kitchen. Sarah pulled up graphs on her tablet. "Look at these fluctuations. It's like something's interfering with the planet's magnetic core. The military's involved now. They're saying it might be connected to that meteor crash 3 months ago." Thomas kept his expression neutral, though his pulse quickened. That case was closed. They found nothing but mineral deposits. Because that's all they were meant to find, a new voice said. Thomas whirled to see a man in a dark suit standing in his doorway, flanked by 2 armed soldiers. "Dr. Chen, I'm Agent Phillips with the NSA. We need to discuss your recent activities." Thomas's mind raced. How had they traced Luna to him? Had his makeshift lab equipment given off detectable signatures? My activities. Your unauthorized access of classified satellite data, your sudden interest in electromagnetic anomalies, and most importantly, Phillips held up a thermal imaging device, the interesting heat signature currently hiding behind your refrigerator. Before Thomas could react, Luna emerged from hiding. But instead of the terrified child he expected to see, she stood tall, her silver skin gleaming with purpose. The lights in the house began to flicker. "No hurt, Thomas," she said, her voice resonating with harmonics that made the windows vibrate. "He helps me. I help Earth." Phillips raised an eyebrow. "So the theories were correct. You're not just a survivor, you're a scout." He turned to Thomas. "Did she tell you why her people sent her here? What they're planning?" "She's a child," Thomas snapped, moving to stand between Luna and the agents. "She's not planning anything except maybe what fruit she wants for breakfast." "A child who can manipulate electromagnetic fields," Phillips said. "A child who appeared just before Earth's magnetic field began to destabilize. That's quite a coincidence, don't you think?" Luna's distress was palpable. The house's electrical systems went haywire, lights blazing and dying, computers cycling on and off. "Not coincidence," she said. "Was sent to warn, to help. Others coming, but not like me. They want Earth empty." The revelation hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sarah gasped. Phillips's hand moved toward his weapon. But before anyone could act, Luna raised her hands, and every electronic device in the house went dead. In the sudden darkness, her skin began to glow with an inner light. "Show you," she said. "Show you all." The touch of her mind, this time, was stronger than anything Thomas had experienced before. Not just images, but knowledge flooded through him, and judging by their expressions, through Sarah and Phillips as well. He saw Luna's people, the Luminari, peaceful explorers who had detected a grave threat to Earth. Another species, the Harbingers, had developed technology to artificially trigger magnetic pole reversals, using the resulting chaos to cleanse planets of native life before colonizing them. Luna's ship had been part of a warning mission, but the Harbingers had detected them. In the battle that followed, Luna's parents had managed to launch her toward Earth in an emergency pod, hoping she would survive to warn humanity. Her natural abilities to sense and manipulate electromagnetic fields made her uniquely suited to help Earth resist the coming attack. When the vision ended, Phillips was sitting on the floor, his weapon forgotten. Sarah had tears streaming down her face, and Thomas felt a fierce pride in his adopted daughter that overshadowed his fear. "How long do we have?" Phillips asked, his official manner cracking. Luna's glow dimmed. "Months maybe. Feel them working already. Weakening field." "She needs protection," Thomas said firmly. "Real protection, not a cell in some facility. And we need her knowledge if we're going to have any chance of stopping this." Phillips nodded slowly. "I'll make some calls. But she stays with you. We've seen the bond you share, and it's clear she trusts you completely." He paused. "God help me, but I think the fate of our world might depend on that trust." Sarah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "The observatory's facilities, my lab, they're at your disposal, whatever you need." She looked at Luna with wonder. "You came all this way to help us. We won't let your parents' sacrifice be in vain." Luna's skin shifted through colors before settling on a warm golden hue that Thomas had come to recognize as happiness. She took his hand, sending him a private thought. Chose right human, best father. Thomas squeezed her hand, knowing that their quiet months of hiding were over. A storm was coming, one that would either destroy Earth or forge an unbreakable bond between humans and at least one remarkable alien. Looking at the determination on the faces around him, Thomas allowed himself to hope it would be the latter. As if reading his thoughts, and perhaps she was, Luna smiled. "Together," she said aloud. "Humans, Luminari, together strong." Phillips was already on his phone, Sarah was sketching equations, and Thomas was mentally cataloging everything they'd need for the lab. Their world had changed forever in the past few minutes, but one thing remained constant, his promise to keep Luna safe. Now that promise extended to all of humanity, and somehow that felt exactly right. Hidden powers emerge. The Socorro Observatory's main lab had been transformed into a command center over the past month. Holographic displays showed the Earth's deteriorating magnetic field in real time. While Luna floated cross-legged in the center of the room, her silver skin rippling with patterns of light as she concentrated. "Another surge coming," she announced, seconds before the instruments confirmed her prediction. Thomas watched as red warning indicators bloomed across the global map. Power grids in Southeast Asia flickered, and satellite communications suffered momentary disruptions. Dr. Sarah Martinez cursed under her breath as she analyzed the data. The Harvinger's field destabilizers are becoming more effective. At this rate, we'll see complete pole reversal within 2 months. Sooner, Luna said, her voice carrying that haunting resonance that emerged when she was deeply connected to the Earth's electromagnetic field. They're learning, adapting their frequencies. Thomas approached his adopted daughter, noting the fatigue in her posture. She'd been pushing herself harder each day, using her abilities to sense and counter the Harvinger's attacks on Earth's magnetic core. "You need rest," he said softly. Luna shook her head, sending ripples of light across her skin. "Can't rest. Feel them up there." She pointed toward the ceiling, towards space. 7 ships, getting closer. Agent Phillips, who had become their liaison with the hastily assembled International Task Force, looked up from his secure terminal. "Our deep space arrays just picked them up. They're in a holding pattern behind the moon, but they're definitely moving into position." Thomas shared a worried look with Sarah. They'd been working around the clock to develop countermeasures based on Luna's knowledge of Harbinger technology, but they were running out of time. The magnetic disruptions were already causing worldwide chaos. Navigation systems were becoming unreliable. Animals were losing their natural orientation abilities, and the aurora borealis was visible even at the equator. Luna suddenly gasped, her body going rigid. The lab's equipment screamed with alerts as a massive electromagnetic pulse swept across the planet. Lights flickered, and for a terrifying moment, everything went dark. When emergency power kicked in, Luna was standing, her skin blazing with internal light. "They're testing defenses," she said, her voice overlaid with harmonics that made the windows vibrate. "But I felt something else. Others like me." "Other Luminari?" Thomas asked, hope flaring in his chest. "Yes, 3 pods entering solar system. Young ones, like me. Scouts." Luna's expression was a mixture of joy and concern. "But Harvingers will detect them soon." Phillips was already on his secure line. "We need every available space tracking system focused on the following coordinates." He rattled off the numbers Luna had somehow perceived through her connection to the electromagnetic fields permeating space. Sarah pulled up new simulations on her holographic display. "If we can link Luna's abilities with other Luminari, we might be able to generate a counter-resonance strong enough to disrupt the Harvinger's technology." "Too dangerous," Luna interrupted. "Young ones not trained. Power too strong. Could hurt Earth more." Thomas recognized the tone in her voice, the same one she used when showing him her increasingly apocalyptic dreams. What aren't you telling us, sweetheart? Luna's skin dimmed to a deep blue, her version of sorrow. She reached out to touch Thomas's hand, sharing not just images but raw emotion. He saw 3 young luminari, scared but determined, their powers untamed. He felt Luna's certainty that combining their abilities would create an electromagnetic pulse powerful enough to stop the Harbingers, and likely kill the luminari in the process. No, Thomas said firmly, pulling his hand away. We'll find another way. There might not be another way, Philip said quietly. If the Harbingers succeed in triggering a full pole reversal, billions will die. The survivors will face a planet ravaged by radiation and climate chaos. Luna touched Thomas's face, her skin warming to the gentle gold that meant love. Is why parents sent me. Why their parents sent them. Luminari protect life, all life. Before Thomas could argue further, the lab's sensors erupted with new warnings. One of the Harbinger ships had broken formation, moving to intercept the approaching luminari pods. Luna's skin flashed with urgent patterns. No time, she cried. Her body began to glow brighter, and she rose several feet off the ground. Must shield them. The air crackled with electromagnetic energy as Luna extended her powers further than ever before, reaching into space to create a protective field around her approaching kin. Equipment sparked and failed throughout the lab, but Sarah's hardened sensors continued recording unprecedented levels of electromagnetic manipulation. Thomas watched in awe and terror as his daughter's power manifested in ways they'd never seen. The local magnetic field became visible to the naked eye, sheets of shifting aurora that centered on Luna's floating form. But he could see the toll it was taking on her. Her normally solid form began to flicker, becoming almost transparent at times. Luna, stop, he pleaded. You'll burn yourself out. Must hold. Luna's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Almost there. The lab's remaining instruments showed the 3 pods accelerating dramatically, riding waves of electromagnetic energy that Luna was somehow generating across the vast distance of space. The Harbinger ship's weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against her protective field. When the pods finally entered Earth's atmosphere, Luna collapsed. Thomas caught her, alarmed by how light and insubstantial she felt. Her skin had faded to an almost translucent grey. Worth it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They're safe. Now we can fight back. Sarah's instruments tracked the pod's descent toward their location, while Phillips coordinated with military units to secure the landing zones. But Thomas focused solely on Luna, willing her strength to return. You did good, he said, cradling her close. But don't ever scare me like that again. Luna's skin brightened slightly, showing a weak pattern that Thomas recognized as her version of a laugh. Not scared. Numb since crash. This why I found you. Best human, best father. Teach me love worth dying for. No one's dying, Thomas said firmly. We're going to find a way to stop the Harbingers together. All of us. Luna's eyes drifted toward the windows, where 3 bright streaks were now visible in the dawn sky. Yes, she agreed. Together. But first, need rest. As Luna drifted into exhausted sleep in his arms, Thomas watched the approaching pods with mixed emotions. They represented hope, proof that Luna's people hadn't abandoned Earth to its fate. But they also brought them closer to a confrontation that could cost him the child he'd come to love as his own. Sarah appeared beside him, her face reflecting his concern. The odds are still against us, she said quietly. Thomas looked down at Luna's sleeping form, remembering the frightened girl he'd found in the desert, now transformed into Earth's most powerful defender. Maybe, he replied, but I've learned not to bet against impossible things. Outside, the first pod touched down in a flash of purple light identical to the one that had changed his life forever. Earth's last, best hope had arrived. The real battle was about to begin. The coming storm. The underground bunker beneath Socorro Observatory hummed with electromagnetic energy as 4 young luminari practiced combining their powers. Luna, recovered from her rescue effort, floated at the center of their formation, her silver skin pulsing with light as she guided her companions. Nova, her skin a deep crimson, specialized in manipulating thermal energy. Stella, glowing soft green, could detect and influence gravitational fields. And Aurora, shimmering with rainbow hues, had an innate connection to Earth's ionosphere. Together, they represented both humanity's greatest hope and Thomas's worst fear. Their signatures are synchronized, Sarah reported, monitoring the complex web of instruments surrounding the alien children. The combined field strength is beyond anything we've recorded. Thomas watched through protective glass, his heart aching. In the week since the other luminary had arrived, he'd seen how their presence had transformed Luna. She was no longer just his adopted daughter but a leader, teaching the others to harness their abilities in ways their own parents hadn't had time to show them. Harbinger ships are moving, Phillips announced from his command station. All 7 vessels have left lunar orbit. Estimated time to Earth, 6 hours. Luna opened her eyes, the other luminary following suit. "They know we're here," she said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that made the bunker's walls vibrate. "Feel their weapons charging. Different this time. Stronger." "Show me," Thomas said. It had become their routine. Luna sharing her electromagnetic perceptions through touch, helping the humans understand what they were facing. Luna floated to the window, pressing her hand against the glass. Thomas laid his palm opposite hers, and the vision slammed into him. He saw the Harbinger ships through Luna's unique perception, massive constructs of dark energy and malevolent purpose. Their weapons weren't simple tools of destruction, but reality-walking devices designed to tear apart a planet's magnetic field at the quantum level. "Jesus," Thomas whispered as the connection broke. "They're not just trying to trigger a pole reversal, they're going to shred Earth's magnetic field completely." "Total extinction event," Sarah confirmed, running calculations. Without any magnetic protection, solar radiation would sterilize the planet's surface within days. Nova moved forward, her crimson skin flickering like flames. "We stopped them," she said, her English still halting. "Luna, show us how. Combined power." "The risk is too high," Thomas argued. "Even if you can generate enough energy to disrupt their weapons, the feedback could kill you all." "Better us than whole planet," Stella said quietly. His green glow pulsed with conviction. "Is purpose why we sent?" Aurora, who had spoken little since her arrival, suddenly illuminated with swirling colors. "Show him, Luna. Show truth." Luna's expression was both sad and determined as she touched the glass again. This time, the vision was different. Thomas saw not the present but the possible future. Earth's magnetic field collapsing, oceans boiling, atmosphere stripped away. Billions dying in agony as radiation scorched the planet clean of life. "This is what comes if we do nothing," Luna said. "What Harbingers do to all living worlds must be stopped. Here. Now." Phillips cleared his throat. "We've got movement in the upper atmosphere. Some kind of energy signature descending rapidly." The bunker sensors screamed as a massive electromagnetic pulse washed over the region. Equipment sparked and died, but the 4 luminari seemed to absorb the energy, their skin blazing brighter. "First attack," Luna announced, testing Earth defenses again, but different target this time. She turned to Thomas, her eyes wide with alarm. "They attack magnetic poles directly now. No more slow destabilizing." Sarah's backup systems displayed a horrifying visualization. The magnetic North Pole is shifting dramatically. They're trying to force an immediate reversal. Aurora's rainbow colors swirled faster. "Feel it. Earth's core, screaming." The ground began to shake as the planet's magnetic field writhed under the Harbinger assault. Around the world, power grids failed and communications went dark. Navigation systems showed compasses spinning wildly, useless as the magnetic poles began to tear free of their ancient positions. Luna gathered the other luminari into a tight formation. Must act now, no more waiting. Luna, please, Thomas begged. There has to be another way. Is another way, she said, her skin glowing with that warm golden hue that meant love. But needs humans too. Earth's technologies combined with our powers. Together. Sarah's eyes widened. The particle accelerators. If we could channel the luminary's electromagnetic manipulation through the global network of particle accelerators. Like lens, Stella agreed. Focus power, more precise. Less chance of burning out, Nova added. Phillips was already on his secure line. I need immediate access to every major particle accelerator facility on the planet. Authorization code Alpha 09. Another shockwave hit, stronger than the first. Warning sirens blared throughout the bunker as the Earth's magnetic field continued to destabilize. Outside, the sky had taken on a sickly green tinge as usually invisible magnetic forces became visible to the naked eye. No time for full network, Luna said. Must start here. Now. Other facilities join as they can. Thomas looked at the 4 young aliens who had sacrificed everything to save a planet that wasn't even their home. They were children, yes, but they were also warriors in a battle humanity hadn't even known it was fighting. His daughter, and she would always be his daughter, had grown into something remarkable. What do you need from us? He asked. Luna's smile was bright enough to illuminate the entire bunker. Power, all you have. Every generator, every battery. And most important, she touched his hand one more time, sharing not images but pure emotion, faith, trust, love. All right, Thomas said, squeezing her hand before letting go. Sarah, route all power to the accelerator. Phillips, get us linked to every facility you can reach. Let's show these harbingers what happens when they mess with Earth's children, all of Earth's children. The 4 luminari rose into the air, their bodies beginning to pulse with synchronized energy. Luna's voice carried over the growing hum of power. Together, Father, always together. As Thomas rushed to help Sarah with the power connections, he silently prayed that together would be enough. Above them, the Harbinger ships moved into attack position, their reality-warping weapons preparing to tear apart Earth's protective field. But for the first time since this crisis began, Thomas felt something new alongside his fear, hope. The real battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity wasn't fighting alone. Racing against time. The Socorro particle accelerator's main chamber pulsed with otherworldly light as 4 young luminari hovered in its center, their bodies intertwined in a complex geometric pattern. Energy coursed through the facility's reinforced conduits, every power source in a 100-mile radius feeding into their desperate gambit. Synchronization at 80%, Sarah called out, her voice tense as she monitored the readings. CERN is online. Fermilab coming up. Beijing responding. Thomas watched through the observation window as Luna, at the heart of the luminary formation, guided her companions in weaving their powers into the human technology. Her silver skin had become almost transparent, pure energy radiating from within. Harbinger ships entering stratosphere, Phillips reported. Multiple electromagnetic signatures detected. They're charging weapons. The chamber's instruments screamed as the first attack hit Earth's magnetic field. Aurora's rainbow form flickered as she processed the assault. Field integrity failing at poles. 15 minutes until irreversible cascade. Rerouting additional power from eastern seaboard grid, Sarah announced. Tokyo facility synchronized. Russia standing by. Nova's crimson glow intensified. Not enough, need more power. We're pulling everything we can, Thomas said. The grid can't take much more. Luna's eyes opened, glowing with inner light. Not grid power, life power. Her voice resonated with harmonics that made the chamber's walls vibrate. Earth itself, all life connected, all energy one. Stella's green aura pulsed with understanding. Like homeworld stories, ancient ones could touch planetary force. Dangerous, Aurora warned, her colors swirling faster. Could burn out completely, no return. Another Harbinger attack rocked the facility. Warning lights flashed as Earth's magnetic field buckled under the assault. Through the observation windows, the sky had turned an impossible shade of purple, magnetic forces visible to the naked eye. No choice, Luna said. Her form began to blur at the edges as she extended her consciousness outward. Father, need your help. All human help. Open minds, open hearts, share strength. Thomas didn't hesitate. He pressed his hand against the chamber window, and Luna's consciousness swept through him like a tide. He gasped as his awareness expanded, connecting not just to Luna, but to every living thing in an expanding circle, plants, animals, humans, all vibrating with the same essential energy. Sarah stumbled as the sensation reached her. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Is this how they see the world?" Phillips grabbed his console for support as the connection swept through the command center. It's everywhere. Everyone. The whole planet. Through their shared perception, Thomas felt the other particle accelerator facilities around the globe sensing up, guided by the luminary's power. But more than that, he felt the surge of human consciousness as millions, then billions of people unknowingly contributed their own life energy to the growing field. Luna's voice echoed in all their minds. "Now, all together, push back." The four luminari began to spin, their bodies transforming into pure energy. The combined power of Earth's particle accelerators rolled through the chamber, amplified and focused by the alien children's sacrifice. A beam of unimaginable power burst upward, channeling the combined electromagnetic force of an entire living planet. Through Luna's perception, Thomas watched as the beam met the Harbinger weapon's reality-warping fields. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as the two forces collided. The Harbinger ships, visible as dark tears in the fabric of reality, reeled under the assault. "It's working," Sarah shouted over the rising hum of power. "The magnetic field is stabilizing." But Thomas could feel the terrible cost through his connection to Luna. The four luminari were burning away their physical forms, transforming into beings of pure electromagnetic energy. His daughter's consciousness brushed against his one last time, sharing not words but pure love and certainty. "No," he tried to say, but in this state, his thoughts were clear to everyone. "Luna, please, we can find another way." Luna's response came not in words but in images, her people's long fight against the Harbingers, the worlds they'd failed to save, and the desperate plan that had sent 4 children across the galaxy. This was why they had come, why they had been chosen. Their powers, combined with humanity's technology and the living energy of Earth itself, could end the Harbinger threat forever. The chamber erupted with blinding light as the luminari pushed their power to its absolute limit. Through their shared perception, Thomas felt the Harbinger ship's reality-warping fields collapse. The alien vessels began to break apart, their impossible technology unraveling as the combined power of Earth and its defenders overwhelmed them. But the luminari weren't finished. Luna's consciousness, now barely recognizable as individual from her companions, reached deeper into Earth's electromagnetic field. They weren't just saving the planet, they were transforming it, permanently strengthening its magnetic field to resist any future attacks. "The Harbinger ships have gone," Phillips reported, his voice filled with awe. "Complete molecular dissolution, no debris." "Magnetic field stabilizing," Sarah added. "It's changing, growing stronger, more complex." The light in the chamber finally began to fade. Where 4 young luminari had floated, now only scattered motes of electromagnetic energy danced in the air. Thomas pressed against the window, tears streaming down his face as he searched for any sign of Luna's consciousness. "Still here, Father," Luna's voice whispered in his mind, so faint he might have imagined it. "Different now. Part of Earth, part of all." The scattered points of light began to spin, forming familiar patterns. Thomas recognized Luna's silver swirls, Nova's crimson pulses, Stella's green ripples, and Aurora's rainbow waves. They weren't gone. They had become part of Earth's magnetic field itself, eternal guardians merged with the planet they had died to protect. "The field is permanently altered," Sarah said softly, reading the instruments through tears of her own. "The luminary, they've become living components of Earth's electromagnetic shield. As long as the planet survives, they'll survive with it." Thomas placed his hand against the chamber window one last time. The points of light swirled around his fingers, and he felt Luna's familiar touch in his mind. "Not lost," she assured him. "Changed, grown. Will always be your daughter. Will always protect Earth, family." As the glow faded and the emergency lights came back on, Thomas looked out at the clearing sky. The Harbinger threat was ended. Earth was safe, and somewhere in the electromagnetic field that wrapped their planet in its protective embrace, 4 young heroes lived on, guarding their adopted home. Sarah touched his shoulder gently. "The readings are beautiful," she said. "They created something entirely new, a living planetary defense system. Earth will never be vulnerable to that kind of attack again." "She kept her promise," Thomas said quietly. "She found a way to stay with us forever." Above them, the aurora borealis danced with new colors, silver, crimson, green, and rainbow hues, swirling together in patterns too perfect to be natural. Earth's magnetic field had become something more, something alive, thanks to the sacrifice and love of 4 extraordinary children. And somewhere in that magnificent display, Thomas knew his daughter was smiling. Salvation's price. 1 year after the Harbinger invasion, Thomas Chen stood at his old observation post in the Socorro Observatory, watching the most beautiful aurora he'd ever seen. The night sky danced with colors that hadn't existed on Earth before the luminary's sacrifice. Shifting patterns of silver, crimson, green, and rainbow light that scientists now called the Guardian Aurora. "The field modifications are holding steady," Sarah said, joining him at the window. She'd been appointed head of the new Planetary Defense Research Division, studying the transformed magnetic field that now protected Earth. The Chinese just confirmed another Harbinger scout ship tried to enter the solar system. The enhanced field pushed it back before it even reached Mars. Thomas nodded, his throat tight. Every attempted incursion reminded him of the price paid for Earth's safety. "They're learning," he said softly. "The Harbingers, finally understanding that some planets are off-limits." Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's magnetic field, no longer the simple dipole pattern of their youth, but an intricate, ever-shifting web of electromagnetic energy. At its heart, 4 distinct signatures pulsed in eternal harmony. "The cellular integration is complete," she reported. "Every living thing on Earth now carries a trace of their energy. We're all connected to the field in ways we're only beginning to understand." Thomas pressed his hand against the window and immediately felt the familiar warm brush of consciousness against his mind. The luminary couldn't communicate in words anymore, but their presence was unmistakable, particularly Luna's silver resonance, which always felt strongest when he was nearby. "Show me," he whispered, and the world transformed through their shared perception. He saw Earth as they now saw it, a living sphere of light and energy, its magnetic field no longer just a shield, but a conscious, responsive guardian. Every human, every animal, every plant contributed to and was protected by this new planetary consciousness. The luminary children had not just saved Earth, they had evolved it. "Dr. Chen," a young voice broke through his enhanced perception. "Are you ready for the ceremony?" Thomas turned to see Jamie Martinez, Sarah's 16-year-old daughter, standing in the doorway. Like many of Earth's children born after the transformation, she had a natural affinity for electromagnetic fields. The silver streaks in her dark hair, another common mutation, seemed to shimmer in the aurora's light. "Almost," Thomas said, straightening his formal uniform. As humanity's primary link to the luminary, he had become something of a reluctant diplomat. Today's ceremony would mark the official opening of the first Luminary Academy, where young people like Jamie would learn to understand and work with Earth's enhanced field. They made their way to the observatory's main auditorium, now packed with dignitaries from around the world. The back wall was a massive window offering a perfect view of the guardian aurora, which had grown particularly active as if aware of the occasion. As Thomas took the podium, he felt Luna's presence strengthen. The aurora responded, silver light predominating as he began to speak. 1 year ago, 4 extraordinary children gave their lives to save not just humanity, but all life on Earth, he said, his voice carrying in the hushed room. The Luminari came to us as refugees, became our friends, our family, and ultimately our guardians. But their greatest gift wasn't just protecting us from the Harbingers. It was showing us that the bonds between all living things are real, quantifiable, and more powerful than any weapon. The aurora flared, and every person in the room felt the gentle touch of the Luminari's consciousness. Some gasped, others wept, but all understood. This was why they were here, to learn from that sacrifice, to build on that gift. Today, we open the first of many Luminary Academies, Thomas continued. Here, the next generation will learn to access and understand the enhanced electromagnetic field that now protects our world. They will become the bridge between traditional human knowledge and the new awareness we've been given. Jamie stood with her fellow cadets, their silver-streaked hair catching the aurora's light. They represented humanity's future, a species no longer bound by old limitations, slowly awakening to its connection with the living energy that surrounded them. The Harbingers thought they could tear our world apart by attacking its magnetic field, Thomas said. Instead, they forced us to evolve, to embrace a power that had always been there, waiting. My daughter Luna and her companions showed us that the greatest force in the universe isn't technological superiority or weapons of mass destruction. It's the connection between living things, the willingness to sacrifice for others, and the power of love to transform everything it touches. The aurora erupted in a spectacular display of color, and Thomas felt Luna's consciousness embrace him one last time. Not gone, never gone, just transformed into something greater. Her love, and the love of all the Luminari, had become part of Earth's fundamental nature. As the ceremony continued, Thomas looked out at the next generation of humanity. They would face their own challenges, their own enemies, but they would face them with new understanding and new abilities. The Luminari's sacrifice had ensured that Earth would never again be defenseless. In the sky above, 4 distinct patterns of light danced in the aurora: silver, crimson, green, and rainbow. The guardian aurora, Earth's eternal reminder of the 4 children who had given everything to protect a world that wasn't even their own. Their consciousness lived on in every magnetic field, every electrical impulse, every spark of life on the planet. Thomas touched the window one last time, feeling the familiar warm response. "Thank you," he whispered, and felt Luna's love wash over him like a wave. The Harbingers had come to destroy Earth. Instead, they had forced it to become something more. A world where the boundaries between energy and matter, between individual and collective, between alien and human had begun to blur. A world protected not just by technology or weapons, but by the conscious love of 4 extraordinary children who had become one with its very essence. As night fell and the guardian aurora painted the sky with impossible colors, humanity looked up and remembered. They remembered 4 brave children, a desperate battle, and a sacrifice that had changed everything. But most of all, they remembered the lesson the Luminari had taught them, that in the end, love was the most powerful force in the universe. And in the electromagnetic field that wrapped around their world like a living embrace, 4 young consciousness continued their eternal watch, protecting the planet that had become their final home. The Earth spun on, its enhanced magnetic field pulsing with life and purpose, carrying within it the legacy of the Luminari children. Not an ending, but a transformation. Not a death, but an evolution. Forever changed, forever guarded, forever loved.